This is in response to Dr. Paul Krugman's article in the New York Times on Monday, December 28, 2015, doubling down on W meaning George W, D-U-B-Y-A, Bush. And what Dr. Krugman is talking about is that the current crop of GOP candidates, even though Trump is the one who's bellicosing the most, that they're all pretty much at lockstep in line with what W was proposing in 2000. But here it is, 2016, and we saw how terrible those policies were and how terrible they left the economy, but they're doubling down on W's policies. So let's take a quick look at what went back in memory lane back in 2000. That after Bush got elected, George W. Bush, that he wanted to reduce the deficit. No, he didn't want to reduce the deficit. He said that we had a stimulus and that we needed to have tax relief. Remember, it wasn't tax cuts, it was tax relief. Because we needed to pay back the American people, and even Greenspan said that we should do it so that it wouldn't cut. We couldn't cut our debt too fast, so to speak. So we had a healthy surplus at the time that Bush came into office. And of course, that went away pretty quickly, and we started to have deficits. But it wasn't until Obama came into office that deficits started to become evil. They are bad. And of course, that's all they've been talking about since Obama came into office, is how we're going to have to pay down our debt. Our grandkids are going to have to pay down our debt. And of course, this all started with W because we had a surplus at the time. Then we had a deficit. No one cried about that when Bush was in office. Our good friend Paul Ryan voted for every single thing that Bush offered back then. Of course, he can't do it now because it's debasing the dollar, so to speak. But so that was a big thing. The tax cuts were a big thing. The other big thing that Bush advocated very highly for was deregulation of the banks, much more so than even Clinton had, because Clinton did repeal the Glass-Steagall Act. So let's put that in perspective a little bit. At the same time, Bush didn't want to have anything to do with regulating the banks in any way, shape, or form. And of course, that was what caused the Great Recession. At the same time, all of our friends on the Republican side are basically saying that the Great Recession was caused by the government. Of course, But what it comes down to, and push punt comes to shove, is what's going on in the economy. What has really happened? Remember, Obamacare was going to be a job killer. Let's go back memory lane one more time. I took Dr. Krugman's charts. I worked my way back to the St. Louis Federal Reserve in terms of where he was getting his numbers from. So on June 1st of the year 2001, Bush had been in office a couple months, that the total employment in the United States was 111,861,000. It started to decrease from there, and of course after 9/11 it went down even further. That number, 111 million, in terms of the total employment, didn't come back until early 2005. And of course it went steadily up a little bit after that, but then and it went up until early 2008, I believe January of 2008, where the total employment in the United States peaked at 116 million people. But of course, after that, the Lehman Brothers, Bear Stearns was first, then Lehman Brothers went way downhill. We were losing 400,000, 600,000 jobs a month starting around August and September. So that by the time that Bush left office, in, let's just say, the January-February mark of 2009, there were only 110,700,000 total employed in the United States. As of November 1st of this year, there were 120,915,000. So that puts us over 10 million more people have been employed in the Obama administration since he has taken office. Now remember, that decline still continued at his first couple months in office. So it's only about an $8 million 8 million additional people that have been employed since then, over as a cumulative amount. And if we can still get let's say 200,000 a month average for the rest of the Obama administration, that'll give us another 2 million on top of that. Now, at the same time, the government expenditures, which remember, the government expenditures, which the Republicans said have all been bad, have been adjusted for inflation, went up in the Bush administration, but have been going down and have remained steadily, so that there was adjusted for inflation about 15% more in government expenditures during the Bush administration than the Obama administration. Remember, that those government expenditures helped create jobs in the Bush administration. So what we have here is that all of the things that W did wrong, have proven that they were wrong, and it is proven that the policies that Obama administration has put in has been doing well in terms of employment. All of those things are what the current crop of Republican candidates are advocating for. Now, as I said, Trump may be the one who's bellicose most about all of this type of stuff, but all of them are all for the same thing. They're all for cutting taxes for the rich. They're all for deregulating the banks. And in terms of foreign policy, and I'll end with that, they're basically all to go back in and to have additional intervention overseas, especially in the Middle East. There have been calls for, Graham has been the only one who's called for boots on the ground. But if a Republican did get elected, it would sound very much to me as if they would put boots on the ground. So again, just to put down, everything that W did sucked. And all of the current crop of Republican candidates are lockstep in line with what W is doing. Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, no, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Yeah. Let's hope that doesn't even come remotely close to happening again.